Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. Hello and welcome, Glenn, to Urbanistica Podcast.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm feeling great. I'm ready to be here.
I'm happy that you're here, and we're gonna talk about so many interesting stuff with focus on renewable energy. And you have been working in this field for many years. So I love to ask you first, what is the renewable energy?
Well, it depends on it. It's a part of the sustainable development that we will not consume more energy than the coming generation can use. So it's a renewable cycle that we don't consume. We just recycle, so to speak, the energy. And we have solar, wind. Hydropower is a part of that, but it also has everything we do have an environmental impact. Like we humans have an environmental impact. So we need to find energy solutions that are as little environmental impact as possible, and especially don't use the resources as much as we do today. So you know about the world, we call it the world overshoot day.
Yes.
And we need to make that longer and longer. And solar is a very, very important part of that solution. And probably today, at least, the most sustainable solution.
I heard it's also the cheapest one, or is it correct?
Well, it all depends. But solar parks is the cheapest in Sweden, if you compare to other solutions, together with the land-based wind power. They are the cheapest, even if you compare the short time it blows and also the short time with sun in Sweden. It's still the cheapest if you compare, because the investments it's very cheap to invest. So if you compare that with nuclear, for instance, it's still the cheapest solution. So solar and wind it's sustainable, but also the cheapest to invest.
And how does the solar works? If you explain the technical part. We put the panel, get the sun, and
it's a physical effect called the photovoltaic effect, which is a physical phenomenon where if you have certain materials, it's typically called semiconductors. That when they are exposed to light, they generate an electric current. And that's a physical effect, which is a bit complicated to explain, but it's nothing strange. So certain materials, when they're exposed to light, they generate electricity or a current. And then you build panels of this material, and when you connect them, they will generate direct current, and then that's what you have. And then when you want to connect it to the grid, you need to have something called inverter to transform the direct current to alternating current. And then you basically have the solar park, but then you need a transformer to raise the voltage to the grid. And then you have a substation and grid connection, and then you can just connect it to the grid. And you just add more panels, you get more power. So that's the typical thing.
And is it also there is an option that you store it in batteries?
Of course, that's a second part that you can always. But the batteries today are fairly expensive, so it will not be a very easy solution. But it will in the future be more. So then you can generate electricity when the sun or wind is there, and then you store it in a battery. And the batteries are getting cheaper and cheaper all the time. For instance, I mean, electric cars today is common, but it wasn't 10 years ago.
No.
So that's the typical concept. And the only thing that is a disadvantage for the solar panel today is that you need quite huge areas.
Yes.
But that's, I mean, you can use, we have a lot of unused areas, and we have on buildings, we can use the building facades or the roof, or we have huge land that we don't use. So the environmental impact is very comparably smaller with solar than
compared to the
other fuels.
Yes. And like when it comes to solar panels and so on, and sunlight in Sweden, do we have enough sunlight to generate power?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I mean, we always have sunlight.
Yeah.
So even if it's cloudy, we have sun.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah. So and today the price for the panels is so low that it is economically viable to use that. And you normally say that during a year has 8,760 hours.
Okay, of sun.
And no,
or entirely. Yes.
If you take 1 year, it's 8,760. About 1,000 hours of that you have electricity production from sun.
Okay.
So, and it's full load. So if you take all you have sun every day.
Yes.
But if you compare that to full load, there would be 1,000 hours.
Okay.
So it's quite good. It's that's in Sweden.
Yes.
So it's
because we also like talked a bit about the other resources of producing energy, like nuclear and the wind turbines and so on. So you telling me that the solar power panel is the cheapest one, and
I must say that it's not that super different, but it's wind and land-based wind, I would say.
Yeah.
Sea-based is good, but it's a bit more expensive.
Yeah.
But solar and wind.
Yeah.
Today, and I would say that solar will be even more cheap in the future, because when the panels become cheaper and so on. But it's very promising.
Yeah. And tell me, because congratulations, now you're working in a project, a really big project, like the solar panels park.
Yep.
It's like the largest in Sweden.
At the moment, yes.
Yes. So tell us more about this.
Well, the thing is, in Sweden, it's a fairly new business. So the parks are developing. So actually, you can say that the biggest parks will be the biggest park for perhaps half a year or 1 year, and then there will be another,
the next one.
Another bigger.
Yeah.
So there is a huge development that came up, the last 3 years, I would say.
Okay.
In solar parks, large. So this park is located outside Stockholm, outside Norrtälje, and it's about 64 megawatts in peak power, but it's huge for me, because it is 102,000 solar panels. 102,000 solar panels. And it's an area of 88 hectares.
Wow.
And 88 hectares is comparable to 129 soccer fields.
This is very big.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But it's if you compare that to Sweden, have a lot of unused areas.
Okay.
So it's not that it will be the whole of Sweden will be solar panels. It's a huge area, but it's unused, and it's not agricultural land. So it's unused land in the woods outside Norrtälje. And this, it's quite impressive that we have that possibility.
Right.
And it's ongoing right now.
Yeah. So I love to hear more about the process. Like when you got this kind of project, what do you prioritize? What is the mission? And then how is the production of the panels, and how do you install, and so on and so on? Like walk us through the journey.
Okay. Well, we normally work as the client's advisor, and we call it owner's engineer. So we are their engineer and their project manager.
Yeah.
So we manage all aspects regarding the project. But they are the client, so they do the land lease, because you have to lease the land, and it's typically done maybe over 40 years. So you rent the land, and then you need also all the permits. You have an environmental permit, and you also need have a deal with a local grid owner to connect to the grid.
Okay.
And that's actually today the bottleneck in Sweden, because the national grid, all the capacity is used today basically. So you need to increase that capacity for transmission of electricity.
Yeah.
So that we need to get a deal up when we can connect.
Okay.
And that's typically the bottleneck. So it's not the project itself that takes time, it's the connection to the grid.
Yeah. But does it mean like, maybe it's a stupid question, does it mean like we need more...
No questions are stupid.
Does it mean that we need more cables and so on?
Because everything is changing. Previously we've had large production of nuclear in certain areas and hydropower in the north. So the grid is designed for that. But now we actually need more electricity everywhere, because we have electric cars and we trying to transform the industry to be fossil free. Then we need other forms, and that's basically electricity. So we actually consume more electricity today, and we need to produce that.
Yeah.
And we also need to produce it in other areas. So of course we need to, it's like if you build new cities, you need more roads.
Makes sense.
It's very easy. So anyway, you need that grid connection and decide, well, we will connect at that time. And then we have to, well, first, of course, you need to find the right location where you have flat or fairly good land with good ground conditions.
Okay.
Because if you have an area of, let's say, 90 hectares or 129 square football soccer fields, the ground conditions have to be okay to put up. Because in this particular project, we have 102,000 solar panels, about 99,000 poles that have to go in the ground to hold the solar panels.
Okay.
And that ground condition has to be stable enough to put down the panel, the poles, and stay there for, let's say
40 years.
Well, 40 years, or you
or
could say
more,
that, or at least 20 years.
Yes, if they expand.
You can always renew.
Yeah.
But anyway, it has to be at least I would say 10-15 years for the economic profitability. And then so to find that ground conditions. And I must stress that normally today we don't build on agricultural land, because people are about saying like, we don't want. No, we don't. We take other land that we don't use for anything else. But then we have to prepare the land so it's flat and good ground condition, take away all big rocks and so on, like we do in all infrastructure projects. So that's what we do in the managed project. So we get a location, we get a connection to the grid, or at least a deadline. We get the permits.
Okay.
And then you need to get all the costs for the project.
Like the construction?
Investments. So, okay, what will the investment be? And then you start negotiating with the contractors to see, okay, how much will it cost to build, buy the panels and the transformer and the substation, everything, and do the work.
Okay.
And then when you get that negotiations done, and you do a business case and see, okay, we can build this for X million, and then we'll sell the electricity, then we get a business case. And then we have a financial close.
Okay.
And then we can sign the deal with the contractor and start doing the construction.
Yes.
And we come normally in the end of that planning. So the client does all these negotiations and so on. Then we come, hopefully we'll get in so we can help them with negotiation and perhaps the final design of the park.
Also, okay.
To give our suggestions on the design, especially for the ground conditions. And then we start managing the projects. It's to see that communication with all the stakeholders, with the authorities and third party, the landowner, everything, all those communication we do, and see that it runs as smooth as possible. And what the good thing is that AFRY we have all experience within the company.
Okay.
So we have competence in infrastructure, industry, and energy. So we have all the experts, and our job as project manager is to be the best advisor for the client and to gather that information from the specific specialists that we have within the company.
When you calculate the financial aspect, like how much money you will make or how much electricity you will sell, what are the prices that you calculate with? Because as you know, like last year, the prices were super high.
Yeah.
I don't know this year. I don't know like the coming 10 years. How do you calculate this?
That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
And you do a prognosis and you do an estimate. But actually, you normally have a power purchase agreement. So the solar projects are privately owned normally. And you sell that. So you have a power purchase agreement with normally a private company that wants to be a renewable.
Yeah.
And then they buy that for 10, 12, 15 years. It depends.
Yeah.
And those prices are, of course, confidential because it's a deal.
It's a deal, yeah.
So it's already sold. So you're safe.
Okay.
And that's when you have that deal, the power purchase agreement, and then you know the cost for the investment, there's a limited risk. And that's our job, is to limit that risk during the construction.
Yeah. So
we are not depending on the price. And actually, you should know that these price fluctuations are normally, it only affects the people that, like house owners and we as a private consumer that do not have a long-term agreement.
Okay.
But it's like a private loan. If you have a 3-year loan, you don't affected by the interest. And it's the same for the electricity.
Yeah. Let's say you have the land and you did all the negotiations. Everyone is happy. Then you have the panels and installed them. And then, tell me more about, should they be a certain degree or should they be like a flat? How is this technical part to, how to say, get as much sunlight as possible?
It's always an optimization. There are in south of Europe or in Africa, you can have moving panels that follow the sun.
Okay.
So you get the maximum amount.
Interesting.
But in Sweden, we need the most economic viable solution, which would be that today we normally have fixed panels.
Yeah.
So we design it for the south facing part, and we have them fixed. And normally, depending on the sun in Sweden, the optimized angle is about 20 degrees. So normally fixed 20 degrees on the south.
Yes.
So and then that's how we mount them.
Yeah. And so you get the sunlight, and then you transform it to the grid.
Yep.
Do you have something in between, like batteries, or you told me like transformer or something?
Yes, you always have. First, you have the panels that generates a current, and then that's a direct current. So you need an inverter to transform it into alternating current.
Yes.
And that's a low voltage. So you need a transformer to step up the voltage.
Yeah.
And then you have a substation at the park where you connect all cables from the panels. And then you have connect that substation to the grid connection, where you have another substation with a transformer for the grid.
Yes.
That's to secure the right voltage for the grid, because it's very, very important that you have the technical durability, so to speak, for the grid.
Yeah.
It's very regulated.
And how about the safety? Like, how far should be this from people or living areas? Because like the number of solar panels and the energy is like it's a huge.
Yep.
So it's how dangerous is it?
As far as I know, today there is very limited danger.
Okay.
I would say that it's electricity, so you shouldn't be open for everybody to go there. But it's no radiation or electromagnetic radiation or something like that. It's very low environmental impact.
So it's not like nuclear. You need to be like that far from this city or people.
No, and everything is dangerous. I mean, roads are dangerous, and so. But this is quite low impact. So you build them. It's quite easy to. I mean, when you put them there, it stays there and produce electricity from the sun. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
And why they are blue? Is it like because they're reflecting the sky, or no? They are like the panels are.
Well, I suppose it's the silica.
The material.
Yeah, solar cells.
Yeah.
They're basically the semiconductor is normally today at least silica.
Nice. So can we change color or something? What do you think?
I'm not sure. Well, you probably can.
Can
because
like art.
Yes, I suppose you can because you have the solar cell and then you have a glass cover.
Yes.
And as long as you can have the solar light penetrate, you could probably have. Yeah. You can probably do them in different colors because today solar panels on parks is one thing.
Yeah.
But today we are looking in developing continuously new materials. So you can have them roof material, facade material. There are actually today windows that are solar panels. And in the future, I am quite sure there will be much more applications and materials that will be some kind of solar cells.
Yeah, I love to explore this part with you as well. Before that, tell me like about the maintenance. A huge number of panels. How do you take care of them?
There's very little need for maintenance.
That's good.
Basically, you need to see during winter time you will have Sweden have snow.
Okay.
So we need to see that they are free of snow.
Yeah.
But the design is when they have 20 degrees, most of the snow will melt and fall off. But you need to make sure that there is no snow.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. And then you need the grass will grow.
Under it.
Yeah, so you need to cut that.
Okay.
Probably, I don't know, once or twice a year.
Okay.
But you also want the grass because normally these solar parks is also... what's the word in English? Biologisk mångfald.
It's like biodiversity.
Biodiversity. So you get this biodiversity. So you want these fields of biodiversity. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
But you need to cut that grass.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's basically no maintenance. It would be if there is any disturbance in the ground conditions, or if they will move or something, which could happen. But it's not regularly maintenance as normally in a power plant.
And there is like a space for a human to get in between, adjust.
Well, that's how you decide. I mean, you need at least have a. I mean, the panels itself doesn't weigh super much, but you need to be able to drive between them.
Drive a car.
Yes, but you need at least if you need to cut the grass. So it's huge areas. You don't walk. You don't walk there. Well, you could, but it's good exercise. So normally you would have a car.
Yeah.
But it's also to transport materials, of course.
Because sometimes I see on YouTube they put the panels next to each other very tight, but then maybe they cluster them.
But you still have to get to them as a person to maintain them, and of course there are always different design. Optimizations and reasons, but at least in Sweden we normally have, so you can drive between them. Yeah, and it's also because if you need to remove the snow and you have but also transport materials.
Also,
and also I don't know, but I guess you can have animals walking there to eat the grass and so on. So
yeah. What are the, like, let's say 3 challenges you face in this kind of projects?
For creating a solar.
Yeah.
Well, there are more than 3, I would say. But the 3 biggest is, one thing is to find a location. That's you need to find a huge area with fairly good ground conditions, because it could be too rocky, or it could be too. In Sweden, we have it's very different from Southern Europe.
Okay.
Because we have had the ice age.
Yeah.
And that left us with clay and very complicated ground conditions, rocks.
Okay.
So it's very different. It's not homogeneous. Could differ within a small area. It can be completely different ground conditions. So we have to find a suitable area.
Yeah.
And that's also what we do. We are experts in exploring the ground conditions. And so we help the client to find the best ground conditions.
Yes.
And then that's, I would say, the main challenge, to find that. And then you need to get all the permits and so on. But that's not, I wouldn't say, the location, and then design the park for those ground conditions. Because they're always different. You can't say it's all like this. So you have to adapt to that. And then you need to design the park so it's economically viable. And then you need to get an investor. So, because it's not easy, even though I say it's cheap, it's still expensive to design the park.
Yeah.
So you need to optimize it and find an economic viable solution. For instance, there are ideas that you can cut down a forest, and then use that area, because we have huge areas of forests in Sweden. But to cut down a forest and prepare the land and ground, that's today still too expensive. So you need to have a fairly open area, and to find that area with good ground conditions that is not agricultural, that's the main challenge. But of course, all projects need to find a good financial solution. That's the tricky part. But so far it's been, there are actually, I would say, the estimation is that the projection is about, I would say, 300 megawatts per year. There are some say that about 500 megawatts per year. 500 megawatts, that's about half a nuclear power plant.
It's a lot, no?
A year.
Yeah.
In solar power. That is in the planning.
Yeah.
So there are many projects, but to find the ground condition, get all the stakeholders on board, and get a financial close, that's I would say the most challenge. Of course, and also the grid connection today. Yeah. Because that would be that's actually the bottleneck for all transition to renewable or fossil free, is to have a good, stable grid, electric grid. That's the main challenge now. Yeah.
And when it comes to design, it's not like that, okay, you have this land and just like roll the solar panel carpet. Like when it comes to the design of the area, I think it's not like that easy. Just like, okay, you have this area, just put the panels and that's it.
No, as I said, the ground conditions are very complicated. And if you take an area of 129 soccer fields, it's huge. Yeah. And the ground conditions are not the same. People think that, you have the ground and it looks the same beneath. Yeah, it doesn't. Okay. So you need to do, we use both boreholes. Sometimes we use ground radar to see what it's like. But then we have to start working, and then we'll probably find that it could be harder and more rocky. It could be clay. Yeah. It could be more water. So you need drainage. And that's what we do as a civil engineer. We prepare the ground condition, and so it's stable conditions.
Mm-hmm. So the challenge when it comes to the design is more about the ground, not really about the panel in itself.
No, that is fairly easy.
Yeah.
Because you know how much power you get.
Yeah.
And you need the configuration that you can probably do on a desktop solution, so to speak. But then you have to adapt it to the local conditions. And that's always a challenge in all projects, actually. It doesn't depend if it's a roads or bridges or whatever. It's the ground conditions is really the challenge.
So we talked about like challenges. Let's talk about the key to make this project successful, or this kind of projects. What are let's say, take also 3 key elements.
Sure. It's not much different than all projects, I would say, or in always good communication, always with all stakeholders.
What is a good communication?
You have to listen, open-minded, asking, be honest, and that I would say. And for instance, if you have obstacles or bad news, you need to be open with that from the start.
Yeah.
And I would say that if it's like when you treat with your friends and family, if you want it to be good for you and for me, then we can find a compromise.
Yeah.
But if it's bad for you and you need to have a good communication, and it should be a win-win for everybody. So you have stakeholders, and that's of course the authorities, the landowner, the client, the contractors, all parties, third parties, and so on. That is very important, because we are all affected, and everybody should be happy with that solution. And if you have that, then you're probably halfway there. But then of course these solar parks is technically, I wouldn't say it's not rocket science. It's fairly okay. But since there are so many panels and such a huge area, the logistics is a challenge. So you need to have good logistics, good quality assurance, because you have to connect 102,000 solar panels. You don't want to have a bad quality.
No.
And so you need to have that, and also for the ground conditions with 99,000 poles.
Wow.
So that's, it's the logistics of everything.
Yeah.
And to have a very structured quality monitoring throughout the process. Because you need to finalize one part, and then it's okay, and then you can check that's
Next,
okay, and then you continue doing that. So that's one. And then of course keep all the costs and project planning, time planning, everything. That's the challenge, because for instance, you have today most, I would say, all panels come from China. So you're depending on international
supply chain.
Yes, and also you need to keep that in mind for the risk management and so on. And
for the delivering and so on.
Yes, and the supply, of course. But normally it's not a huge challenge, but you need to keep track of that. Especially if you need bigger parks, because we're looking into maybe 100 megawatts or more. Then it's even more. So I would say that those are I would say project management, but it should be a very agile project. It's not like we're building a road. It's not the same. You have to be open for changes and always looking for different solutions. So you can't say that the solar project all are the same.
No.
And they're not the same as other projects. So you need to be agile and find different solutions. Different ground conditions could demand different solutions. So you have to look on different aspects.
And let's talk about if we come closer to a city. Let's say not all cities has this kind of land, and there are very dense cities. How can we generate more solar or energy from the solar panels in cities? dense cities. There is no land. We have only buildings.
Yes. Well, there are actually, it depends. We are standing now from a huge challenge in the climate. So we have to be very open-minded and curious, finding new solutions, be very creative. So just open up and start thinking very different from what we do today. So first you have, of course, the roofs. You can have that, and you can have the new construction materials that could be solar panels.
Okay.
So design the houses in a different way. There is a possibility in the future, at least, to have some parts of the windows could be solar panels. But then, of course, you can also have like parking areas.
Yeah.
You can have a roof over this parking area, which is solar panels.
Okay.
Today they are open.
Yeah, that's true.
And also in some cities, I know they have a huge sunlight.
Yeah.
So they have all the bicycle paths are covered with solar panels.
Wow.
So you're biking under a roof of solar panels, so you don't get wet and you don't get too much sun. So to find the local solution.
Yeah. But this might affect also like the image of the city. Like the city,
Yes, of course.
the city will not look the same. Now we have different materials, the shapes of buildings and so on. But maybe if we integrate the solar panels, the city will look, almost the same color, the same. Everything is turned, like, let's talk about Sweden. Everything is turned 20 degrees to the south.
No. If you build it on a house, it's not the same as designing a solar park.
That's
then
true.
it's a part. It should be an integrated part of the building design.
Yeah, that's true.
And hopefully, it should be perhaps different colors and different designs.
Yeah.
So it's up to us, you as a city planner, and the architects and the engineers, and also the manufacturers, that we say, well, we would like to see it this way, and can we make it in a different way? And also, I know that our architects, both the AFRY's architects concept and Sandell Sandberg, are looking at different solutions. And if you integrate the solar panels as a part of the landscape, it doesn't need to look like it's solar park. It could be some form of artwork or do we look on all houses and bridges and everything to be a bridge, or could it be a part of the landscape? So we have to open up.
It's more like rethinking how we look at in the infrastructure, maybe in our cities. And we talked a lot about the solar panels and so on. Take us to the other elements when it comes to renewable energy, nuclear and wind. Which one is like, where are we heading to? What are we investing in globally also?
Yeah. Well, first, nuclear is not renewable, but it's fossil.
That's true.
It's fossil free.
That's true.
So, and the world today face a huge challenge, and we need to find a new energy system, I would say. But anyway, we have all solutions today. We just need more solar, more wind, and we also most certainly need more nuclear. But if you compare today, this is happening. So the last 5 years, there's built more solar power than anything else.
Wow.
And
in Sweden or globally?
Globally. And I think you've built 10 times more the capacity in solar power than coal.
Okay.
Today, for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And probably 5 times more wind than coal. So this is happening.
Yeah.
But we need more, different solutions. So we need to change our view of the way we produce electricity. Because in Sweden we've had nuclear and hydropower, and we are happy with that.
Yeah.
But the society is changing. We have, for instance, we will have fossil-free production of steel in the Nordics. They will consume a lot of electricity.
Okay.
We have a lot of electric cars that are fossil-free. They will consume electricity. So we need more electricity production, and we need it actually everywhere. So, for instance, we need nuclear, and perhaps not the same as previously, where we have huge power plants. There is small modular reactors. It's a new smaller nuclear reactor, which is safer, easier. It's probably produced in a factory and then put on a place. So it's not constructed at the location. So it's bought as a ready-made nuclear module, and you put it there, and then you run it until it's like for 20 years, and then you take it back. And those could be used for industrial processes, etc. So today we are building more solar power than ever and more wind than ever, which is good. But we still need more solutions. So and it also has to be local. What prerequisite do you have in Sweden or in Germany, and we also need to be more. I say we should be more cooperating and friendly, because we have different prerequisites in Sweden. We have hydropower, we have a lot of lakes, not lakes, but coastal area. We could probably have sea-based wind power. I mean, Germany is a huge country. It's difficult for sea-based wind power. So you have to find the solutions from that specific geography. But I would say we need more of everything. And today we have a very good energy system in Sweden, but we need it to be renewed, because the nuclear is old and it needs to be renewed. We also need to renew the transmission network or grid, and also build, I would say, more wind, more solar, and perhaps new small modular nuclear reactors when that is economically viable and safe.
And if we upgrade the grid, what do we need? Do we need to change all the cables or the power station or power plants? What do we need to do?
I think it's both different locations, because now you need connections everywhere.
And so there are more people moving to the city, more.
But also you have each solar park is a new connection, and each wind park is a new connection. So you need to both strengthen the grid, both north to south, but also more diverse. So
sources.
Yeah.
And you talked about
and also the grid connections to other countries, because the good thing is that we read about all the conflicts in the world, but actually we are cooperating more in the world today than ever.
When it comes to energy?
No, in everything actually. So the news are typically bad, but actually the world is a better place today. You know Hans Rosling?
Yes, of course.
Yes. So we have grid connections, and it's actually a super stable grid network in the Europe today. It's just that we need to increase the capacity, because we will use more electricity to be fossil free. So it's not bad, but in order to be fossil free, we need to increase the grid and also build new renewable.
So there is already a collaboration between countries, like selling energy to each other and so on.
Yes.
And what do you think about batteries? Because we talked about like the dense cities and so on. Tesla introduced this battery wall. What do you think about building buildings where walls are batteries?
I think in the future, all this will be integrated more. But it needs to be safe. And with all development, it's promising, but there will be accidents or mistakes. So it needs to be safe before we introduce it. And batteries in walls, I'm sure in the future will be a integrated solution. But I mean, today we know that some cars sometimes
explode
or at least start burning. And it has to be safe, because you don't want the wall to start burning and
the entire.
But I'm quite sure that you will find solutions for that. and so on, and the batteries will be cheaper. So, and that will be better because now we need an overcapacity in order to have electricity when it's peak load. But in the future, if you have batteries, then you just have to install as much as you need, and then the battery will accumulate, and you will use it, store it, and use it when you need it. So that will improve.
Yeah. Does this, like all the electricity and batteries, affect our bodies? Let's say if we are close to them. Do you know about this?
As far as I know, no.
Okay.
It does not, because the radiation levels from, the electromagnetic radiation is very small, and it's also it's built the way that it should be screened. It's like a cable. It's we are surrounded by radiation actually from radios and everything. So telephones and everything, but I don't. Well, I'm not an expert in this area, but I would say, with the information I have, it's not.
Do you see like it's possible in the future cities, let's say, that we hide batteries under the bike lines, streets, football arena, parking garages, and then like underneath the batteries and on the top the solar panels?
Sure. I work with infrastructure. And the whole city is a huge technical system of infrastructure to make us live a happy life.
Better quality.
But we have fiber for the internet, we have telephone, computer lines, we have electric, we have
sewage,
water, and we have district heating, district cooling. So if you underneath the ground, it's a lot of infrastructure. And we also have in Sweden, at least in Stockholm, we have a lot of road tunnels. So you don't have to build the roads on the surface, so you can have a huge network of tunnels. So it's we already have that infrastructure, and you will, of course, have that more in the future because you will develop new materials and new sources.
And you told me also before about like in Glasgow, and then the roadmap in order to be like fossil free 2050. What is the plan? What do we need to do in order to be fossil free in 2050?
Well, hopefully we will be more fossil free, but not completely, because it's what happened is that these conference of parties that we have in Paris 2015, when we got this 17 development goal, 2021 we had a similar in Glasgow. And the world is aware of the challenge. It's not that the politicians are not aware.
No, they agreed about this.
They agree about. So then that's the first time they agreed that we shall bend the emission curve of carbon to lower it, which is a first in the industrialized era. It's quite impressive. So anyway, they all agreed that we should bend. And what do we have to do? And we're talking about 30 years period. So in 10 years, we will decrease the carbon dioxide emissions with 1/3. That's a lot in 10 years.
This is globally.
Globally. And all countries are into that. Of course, we would like to increase that, but then we would need China and India to be on board. But these countries are still developing. So it's kind of difficult for us to say to them that you should stop the development. So, but they are still, China, I think, is one of the biggest producers of solar power and wind power. So they are doing a lot. So it's not that they're doing nothing. Anyway, so we need to build more solar power, wind power, and battery storage in order to be able to decrease the carbon dioxide emissions. And that's the same for each 10 years. But there is already being done, as I mentioned, that we are globally already investing most in solar power and wind power. So I think we are actually going in the right direction, and we should skip criticizing each other this much and creating bad vibes, because the world is actually going towards a better place, and the politicians are actually agreeing about this. So the projections is that we will invest in what we call a new energy economy. And the inspiring thing is that when I meet industries and people, everybody is very passionate, and it's like a burning desire to make the world a better place. So, and if you go to the solar industry in Sweden, it's a huge passion and inspiration to do this, and it's a lot of creativity, and it's all over the world. So we have the industries making these solutions. They are very creative in finding different concepts, and you have battery storage and battery developers. We have in Sweden Northvolt, which is considered to be one of the best battery manufacturers in the world. And that will be that we will build factories to manufacture batteries, and then we will build the battery storage, and so it's a lot of industries that are emerging doing this. And so I would say the engineer is the hero for the future.
Nice.
Because that's our competence is needed to do this transformation. Engineers and architects and urban planners.
So you telling me that we are on the right path in achieving this goal, and there is a lot of innovation happening now when it comes to renewable energy. And usually in the podcast, I also ask what should we stop doing when we innovate or are working with a new project. So my question to you, what should cities stop doing when it comes to renewable energy?
We need to be more agile. The bureaucracy, criticizing, the political standpoints, we need to work together. We have a common challenge, doesn't depend on what political views or anything. The world doesn't give a shit, really. So we need to support and make, we have a common challenge. How do we make this? So work together, stop criticizing each other. Actually, I didn't mention that before, but I'm quite sure we need nuclear in the future. So there is not one solution. It's not solar or wind or nuclear. We need everything, but it depends on the local solution, prerequisites or different challenges. But we all need to work together. We have a common challenge. Let's work together and stop criticizing each other. Because if you're criticizing each other, the creativity stops. So we need to be more creative, agile, very curious. And I believe that we have learnings to do from different countries. There are different solutions in Africa or Eastern Asia or Europe. So find which we can learn from each other. What is your experience? What are your mistakes? What have you learned? And I think we're doing that, but we should stop criticizing each other.
Like when you say criticizing, what do you mean? Like in which way are we criticizing each other?
Today we are saying that wind power, I don't want wind power in my backyard. Some people say nuclear is the solution. Other people say, well, we don't want nuclear. So it's either or. And we have to find and accept a solution for everybody. We need wind, we need solar, we need nuclear. And that's my perspective, because we have a huge challenge. And we need to find the best solution.
But as far as I know, nuclear is not good for the environment, or it's expensive. Or?
Of course, it's the most expensive today. If you levelize the cost, it's still the most expensive, even though it has about 8,000 hours per year it runs.
Okay.
But it's very expensive to invest. So even though it runs a long time, it's still more expensive than solar and wind. But it's like this. You need that to have a stable net grid.
Yeah.
So it's good that it runs steadily and produces, and you also can produce. You can put with the new small modular reactors. You can actually put them where you need them.
Okay.
So you don't need to put the grid and have a production in south of Sweden, and transmission
to the north,
transport it to the north, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So, and for instance, this is now we're getting into another part, but yes, it's not. There are risks with nuclear, which is scary, but actually, you can actually design that. So, I mean, we've had a few huge accidents, but we have a lot of plane accidents, we have a lot of car accidents, we have a lot of bicycle accidents.
That's true.
So, I mean, if you take all the people that die by car accidents,
good luck. Yeah, it's much more. Yeah.
So we have to be, and that's what I mean with criticizing.
Yeah.
What we have to be humble about this challenge and learn from each other.
Yeah.
And have a smart solution where it's more applicable. And I believe that nuclear is a part of the solution. Solar and wind is definitely.
Yes.
Wind, for instance, we have very good conditions in Sweden. Not all countries have that.
Okay.
So it's not that you can build wind everywhere.
No.
It depends on the resources from wind and also the solar.
Yeah.
So find the best solution. And that's and the cities and we as a civilizations need to do that. For instance, we could fight all to the bitter end and then we die. But I was right. I mean, we have to be humble.
Yeah.
And nobody is completely wrong and nobody is completely right.
Yeah.
So we that work together.
Is there like another source than what we know now? Like we had a coffee yesterday. You told me about waves.
Yes. Wave, it's like all concepts. You should try and test all these ideas. But wave energy is as far as I understand today, I worked with that for 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find a technical solution how to transform the energy from the wave into electricity. That's a tricky part.
Okay.
And also you need that wave energy to be strong enough to produce electricity for a long-term period. And basically the waves are far out in the sea, so you need a long cable. So all these, you haven't found a economically viable solution that is also can operate during a long time, because I know we all know that the sea is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And it has to be, they break. So far it's not, I haven't heard about a very commercial, easy solution.
Yeah.
And for instance, wind, we know we have 3 blades turbine that works.
Yeah.
We have the silica photovoltaic solar cells. So we need to find these physical concepts where it's working. And that's what I think we have those. And I mean, for instance, hydropower is super good, but that's a huge environmental impact when you have a hydropower plant built. But when you have it built, it's renewable.
Yeah.
But it's a huge actually environmental impact when you build it. And you have the nuclear. So that's what we have today.
Yeah.
What we all dream about is the fusion power.
What is it?
Fusion, well, nuclear is fission. That's when you divide a nuclear core.
Yeah.
Fusion is when you bind 2 together. That's 2 atoms.
Okay.
and that's more power produced in that, or more energy than anything. The sun is a fusion power. So, and the fuel for that is hydrogen. And so you have a lot of water. So if you find that you have a continuous operation of a fusion plasma we look at today, then I would say that we have a sustainable solution for the future. But it's everything, it's not easy, and it's challenging. So it shouldn't be easy, right?
I mean, you need to experiment.
The bigger the challenge, the bigger the win.
Of course, and everything we have now today, and that we think it's easy and easy to get, easy to make. In the beginning, it was difficult. It took a lot of experimenting and testing and see how it works and developing. So it's the same process with everything in life.
Yes, it
testing, see what comes out, and testing, upgrading, and so on.
Just to be, how to call it, perhaps a bit corny, but just imagine if all the energy we in the society put in criticizing each other, if we put all that energy in finding a solution, then we would probably find a solution.
Yeah, a few steps.
Yes. So that's what I mean with we need to focus on the goals rather than I'm being right.
Before we go to the next section of this episode, which will be about people behind the project, it's going to be more about you. My last question here is about skills. What skills do we need to learn or to develop in order to work with renewable energy?
And you mean skills as people or engineers?
As engineers.
Well, most of the competence we have. So we need to be, it's more human skills. We need to be open-minded and curious, and so we have all the competence in AFRY we need, but sometimes we don't work together as much as we could, and we go to meet our clients or competitors. We need to be open-minded, find the best solution, continue to be curious, because there are solutions. We just need to find them, and being creative, also be agile is a popular word, but it's a good word. You need to be flexible, adapt. And Darwin, adaptation. So we need to adapt now, and we need to be creative. We've had like 100 years of industrialization. Now we face a completely new challenge, and that's a climate change. And what I mentioned about this global energy economy, that's actually what all the politicians say, that this is the biggest change in the society in 100 years since the industrialization.
Wow.
So, and to do that change, we need to be open for that change.
Also,
those are the skills. So be curious, open-minded, and learn from each other. And also probably learn from the history, because our previous civilizations, they knew a lot. And we can probably learn from them.
So open-minded, curious, and flexibility. Great. So let's move to the next part of this episode.
Thank you.
Now in this part, we're gonna explore and know more about you.
Yes.
Because in the podcast, we talk about projects and people behind the projects. So now it's about you. Tell me, what gives you energy and motivation to do what you're doing?
Well, I've found out that I'm very passionate. So I do what I'm passionate about. And that gives me energy, because if you work a lot with something you love, then you don't see it as work. And I love my job, and I love what I'm doing. So I'm very passionate. That's, if I don't find the passion in what I do, I move.
That's good now.
I change.
Yeah.
So I actually I love my job.
And tell us more about you, like where you grew up, how was your childhood, what did you study?
Yeah. Well, I'm from south of Sweden in a small town called Kalmar. And well, actually I had a quite a tough background.
Okay.
My mother was ill when I was a child. And so, well, in Sweden it's called maskrosbarn. In English it would be dandelion child.
Okay.
The dandelion is something that can grow through asphalt and become a flower through tough conditions. And so I had a very tough childhood with a very ill mother. And I had to grow up very early and very fast to take responsibility. Yeah. So I would say I had a happy childhood, but quite tough.
Yeah.
And I learned to appreciate the small things in life. But what I also learned is that it's up to me to do the change. So that gave me a strength. And so throughout my whole childhood, my mother was ill and she died when I was 25. So I stayed home and took care of her. And then when I was 25, I moved to Stockholm and started at the Royal Institute of Technology because I knew that actually, a part of me has always been creative and I like drawing and art and so.
Yeah.
So I was thinking I want to be either an architect or an engineer.
Okay, yeah.
And I became an engineer, but I still have the love for art in all aspects within me.
Yeah.
And it's a part of me. And also I'm very curious about other cultures, and one driving force I have is that I want to learn and you could say be a better person, but develop myself and I normally say that I will die curious.
Okay.
That's a very driving force. And the problem is to limit that because I have to focus.
Yeah.
And then now we're working in the challenge in the environmental. But I was an environmentalist. So when I was a teenager, I was like a little Greta.
In Kalmar.
Yes, well, it's always been a driving force that I care about the environment.
Yeah.
And so I want to work with that. So when I started at the Royal Institute, I, of course, started to study energy or power plant engineering because I also want to be a part of the solution. So how can we create a better energy system? That's a part of me. And that's also driving force. That what I want to work with is be a part of the change. So I couldn't just produce something to earn money. That's not my biggest. I want to be a part of the change in the society, make the world a better place.
Yeah.
That's my passion.
Yeah.
And also I'm very curious about learning from other cultures. So what actually was very important for me was that I became an exchange student.
Okay.
When I was 18, I went to US, and that's probably saved my life because my background, my home situation was really depressing and really tough and quite dark.
Yeah.
And when you're a teenager, life is tough as it is.
Yeah.
But to take care of a sick mother and have problems at home, it was super depressing. So I changed my environment.
Yeah.
And spent 1 year in the US, and I flourished.
Yeah.
It was a new environment where I was myself.
Yeah.
And so I was the flower, the dandelion that came out. And then I knew that, okay, it's the environment that is my problem, not me. So I knew, okay, I will fix this. It's not a problem. So anyway, I came home, and then when my mother had died, and I decided now I can move and create my life.
Yeah.
So then I started at the Royal Institute and finalized my study in power plant engineering.
Wow.
But I'm still very curious about different countries, and I grew up during the Cold War era. So I was very curious about Eastern Europe and ex-Soviet Union. So I did my master thesis on a Russian power plant in Latvia.
Interesting.
Yes, because I want to see what it's like.
What is there?
And then when I finalized my studies, I did the thesis. After that, I moved to Thailand. So I got a trainee position at Vattenfall, the Swedish national utility company. So I moved to Bangkok and worked in a Thai energy company. Because Vattenfall was part owner. So they sent me there as a trainee, and I was a part of a huge, actually at that time it was coal-fired power plant. It was 35 years ago, so it was that at that time. But anyway, I worked at that project in a Thai company with Thai colleagues. I had a Thai boss, and that's when I learned how to be humble. Because I couldn't go there and say, this is how we do it in Sweden. I needed to understand, how do you do it the Thai way? So I learned to change my way of working and listen to them. And it was quite interesting, because when I came there, I was like, everybody is that, well, isn't this the way to do it? And you don't say that in Thailand. No. You listen to, you respect the elders. So the project manager told me, Glenn, please come here. And just imagine, I was a young engineer, but the project manager for a huge project gave me his time. So he said, please, Glenn, come here. And we stood at the window in this skyscraper on the 35th floor, looking out over Bangkok. And he said, Glenn, please look at this. This is built the Thai way. And then I understood, at that point taken.
Yes.
And that was a learning experience. So, and I've taken that with me. So after that, I decided this is what I want to work with. Huge international projects and different cultures, because then it's not just a job. It's not just building a power plant. You learn a lot by living in a foreign culture, because we are all different with different experiences, but you grow as a human being.
True.
And that's some very strong driving force for me, is to grow as a human being. So when I came back, I decided I want to work in large projects. So I worked at ABB, when ABB was one of the largest corporations in the world. And then after that, I became a project manager, moved to Stockholm, started working at Vattenfall and large power plants. And then I've worked 10 years internationally in different projects. I would, like in Asia, Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe. So I continue to work in Eastern Europe. I've been working with international aid projects, electrification of Southern Africa. So then you do a project, but it's also improving the living situation for these people. And that's been a very red thread through my all my work, is that it's not just a job. You need to improve the living situation and the civilization. And that's what I continue to do. And you also learn a lot.
Of course. So what is your, how to say, because you had a tough childhood, and it was a lot to do with the conditions around you. What is your advice to our listeners when it comes to, okay, I feel depressed, I feel this is not my environment, this is not the conditions I want to be in, but I cannot change so much. What can I do when it comes maybe to work or family or a city? You can always do something. It's always up to you. Life is not fair. It's and sometimes you have to ask for help. There's always help to get, and if you don't get it, ask more. Ask another person. Ask a different. Don't give up. Never give up. And it's all. I have a personal mantra. Well, several, but one is
always forward.
Okay.
If I can't do it this way, do another way. If some people call it agile, but I continue to solve the problem until I have solved it. And sometimes you have to need to go back and save energy, find a passion, do something else, and then you continue. So because it's up to you. You can't sit there and say, but I didn't get any help. It's up to you.
Yeah.
And it's the same for us when we talk about environment or the climate change. It's up to you. It's not somebody else. It's not the politicians. It's up to you. And we can always do a little.
Yeah.
And when it comes to mental illness or something like that, that's a really tricky. So it has to be depending on your person, but things always ask for help, and there is always help, but perhaps not from the person that you expect.
True.
That's been my case. I got help and support from the most unusual people in my surroundings. It could be a teacher, it could be a distant friend, it could actually be somebody on the street.
Okay.
So it depends on different situations, but it's always up to you. That is you have to take. It's your own responsibility, your own life.
What do you want people to read about you or to hear about you 100 years from now? Let's say if they see your picture, name on the internet, but it's 100 years from now.
I would like to that I was a part of the solution for the climate change. That would be, because that's what I do now and try to do. That's one thing. Another part could be that I did some inspiration to somebody to be, learn more or develop yourself or finding new solutions, open up. Like we said, I mean, what I learned as a Dandelion child. I mean, that to be inspire somebody to be better.
Yeah.
And also, I haven't mentioned my privately biggest passion in life is that I'm a cycling instructor, or it's called spinning instructor.
Okay.
At Sweden's largest gym here in Stockholm.
Wow.
I've been there for 26 years.
Yeah.
And I've been in the same gym for 23 years. And that's my biggest passion privately.
Okay. Yeah.
Every week I have 3 classes of spinning. Yeah. And I will actually have tonight
also
75 minutes of interval cycling.
Okay.
And the fun part is that I've been at the same gym for 23 years. And I've actually have clients participating with me every week for 23 years.
That's so amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's to inspire others to exercise and find joy.
Yeah.
That's a really great passion. If I have my classes and inspire someone to exercise, that is inspiration for me, and that gives me energy.
Gives you back. So Glenn is part of the solution when it comes to climate change and energy, renewable energy, and also inspiring people.
Yes.
And through your career, you worked very internationally in different countries, different projects. What is the one that you're most proud of? Not specifically a project, could be anything you did in your career.
Well, first I must, even though I'm humble of the challenges and obstacles. So when I say I'm proud of something, it's been a huge challenge for me.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm probably most proud of in my work is that I was project manager for the shutdown of a Russian nuclear power plant.
Okay.
And that's the same type as Chernobyl. It's called the Ignalina nuclear power plant in Lithuania. So I was project manager for the first part of the shutdown.
Wow.
Living in there. Had a Russian project team, Russian-Lithuanian.
Yeah.
And everything was done according to Russian nuclear regulations, Lithuanian law, and all the European directives. So it was a very complex project.
Yes.
And very complicated, but we did it, it was a successful project.
Yeah.
And I learned to work with Russians in a Russian project. It was the people working there were the same Russians from the Soviet Union.
Okay.
So I have learned a bit about how it is to work in Russia.
Yeah.
But also it was actually a huge environmental project since it was shut down of a risk nuclear power plant because it was the same as Chernobyl.
Okay.
So that was the reason why the European Union demanded that Lithuania shut down that power plant when they entered the European Union.
Okay, it's like a criteria.
Yes. And then, of course, for me, it was an adventure to work. As I said, I was very curious about the Eastern Europe and Russia from that. So I learned a lot as a person. And actually, I can say that Russians are wonderful people when you know them as people.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a really memorable and learning experience that I'm really fond of. And work-wise, I would say that's probably what I'm most proud of. But I'm proud of other things that I've also been,
of course,
working with electrification of Mozambique. I lived there for 2 years and was head of all the transmission and distribution projects during that time. So it was very inspiring to electrify the suburbs, the poor areas where you didn't have electricity. And electricity is the first thing you need to develop your society.
Yeah.
So it's very inspiring. And at that time, you learn that materialism is quite superficial because these people are happy with what they have.
Exactly.
And we should also be. And that's, I think, it will be a very important part of the climate change.
Yeah. The plant in nuclear power plant in Lithuania, when you shut it down, what is the process that, like, you take the material, or what do you shut? How do you shut down?
Well, actually, it's not that complicated. You shut it down. That's what you do. But then what we did was, you can't just shut down because they provide electricity and heat. Because Russian nuclear power plants often they also supply heat.
Okay.
District heating so you need to build some other supply of electricity, and also you need to prepare for the decommissioning and so on.
Yeah.
So what we actually did was build the other supply of heat and electricity in order to be able to shut down. But when you shut down, you just press the stop button. But then you shut down the nuclear power plant, you stop it. But you need to prepare for the shutdown. And that's the tricky part. And also, of course, then you need to prepare for the storage of the nuclear waste and also the nuclear radiated construction materials and so on. And you to prepare for the disassembly and so on. So, and that's what we did. And the project is, I was there for 1.5 years on site for the first part.
Yeah.
But then when I came home, I became the project director because Vattenfall had the project management for the complete in a consortium together with Tractebel and AMEC. So it was a consortium of 3 companies. But when I came home, I became the project director for the complete shutdown. And then we're talking about a multi-billion euro project. So I would say it probably cost about, I don't know, perhaps 4 billion euro.
Wow, that time.
Yeah, but it still continues. It takes about 20 years to, everything
clean and
yes,
all
we have the same in Sweden.
Yeah, you met a lot of people that are not from Sweden, different culture, different backgrounds, different religions. What was the secret of getting along with people and being a good team players to deliver a project?
I've said it before, but it's always be open-minded and curious and humble, because it's mutual respect. For me, when I went to Lithuania, I had to respect their ideas, their culture. Of course, I understood that I wouldn't be popular to come there and shut down their power plant. But they knew it had to be done because it was a political decision. Yeah. But I need to respect them and work together with them on their conditions.
Yeah.
Because when you are in a foreign country, you have to be...
You're a guest.
You're a guest, and you have to respect their ways.
Yeah.
It was the same when I was in Thailand. I had to respect their ways and do it their way. So basically, I became a little Russian. I became a little Thai.
Yeah.
And when I was in Africa, I became a little bit Mozambican. So... And that's how you develop. You learn.
Yeah.
And that's actually the really inspiring experience, to learn a little from them. But you always need to respect each other. And I have it's really my personality, because I see myself as a citizen of the world. I don't see myself as Swedish.
Yeah.
Okay, I come from Sweden, but I'm a citizen of the world.
It's because you traveled a lot and you explored different cities, or?
I think I had that interest from my childhood, the curiosity. Because when I look on a different country, I say, wow, that's interesting. I want to see and I want to learn. Yeah. How do they do? That curiosity is a very, like a fire inside of me. I want to learn.
Yeah.
And also I'm a bit adventurous, but it's a learning part of it that is, it's not the scary part, it's the learning part that is important for me. So I love to work and live in other countries. Travel is of course nice. It's always nice, but it's a bit superficial. But if you work somewhere, you need to learn the language, you need to learn the culture, you understand how do these people interact.
Yeah.
How do you make a project successful with Russians? How do you make a project successful with Thai people?
Yeah.
And what makes them tick? What is the key of success? And you have to be very humble and open-minded to understand their driving force. What is driving them? And it's different from person to person, because all Russians are not the same. That's the terrible part when we say, well, there are Russian like that, or African like that, or not African, but South Mozambican or Latin Americans or whatever. No, we are individuals, everybody.
We're different.
We are different, but also I normally say, the culture is like a coat. You put on that, you have a culture. But here, we are the same human beings.
And the heart.
In our heart, we have our personal fear or inspiration, passion.
Yeah.
And you have to find that.
And do you see this is like a circle of life, because you were and still passionate about other cities and countries since you were a child. Then you did your master about like the Russian nuclear plant? Or?
No, it was not nuclear at that time.
What was
when
it?
I did my master, it was purely a natural gas fire.
Natural gas. But then after years, you start to work in international projects.
Yep.
And then you work with the Russians.
Well, I also worked in Africa and Latin America and Middle East.
Yeah, what I want to say here is like, life gave you back what you wanted.
Yes.
Or gave you what you wanted, not back, but gave you what you wanted. I have a lot of friends. I know a lot of students. They are hungry and curious and want to work in international projects or want to get things, but maybe quick and now. Maybe they don't have really the passion to get it later. They want now work in an international project, very big project, work in this specific country or this specific company in this specific position. So they want things to happen at the moment and now. But from your journey, okay, you were passionate about this stuff, but you got them later. So how can we think when we want things happening now and they are not happening?
Well, two things. The classic question, what is your why? Why do you do things? So to reflect on why do I want it to be quick? What is it that I want to achieve? And why do I want to achieve that? I didn't know that I was curious. I just was curious.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do things. My plan when I went to study power plant engineering was to learn more about power plant and thermodynamics and energy systems, to be a part of the solutions. But at that time, I didn't know exactly what. I mean, that was my view. That, but when I worked there, I realized I want to be a project manager of a large power plant project. That was my short-term goal. I also knew that I would want to work internationally because that's where the complex, cool projects are, but also where you can be adventurous and learn from other cultures. It was, and I knew that was my why. I want to be a part of the solution. I want to learn, and I want to contribute. But when young people, I don't know, you say that, so I don't say, but if people want it to be quick, nothing happens too quick, because a big part of the learning is the road.
Yeah.
That is, for instance, I want to be rich. Why? It's the way when you work and you learn and the challenges you overcome, the experience from that. That is the learning and the passion and the fun part. When I've been finalizing a project, I just think, okay, what should I do now? It's the way towards that is that's the for me. And to go back to talking about my childhood, I never reflect of that I had a worse childhood or than anybody else, or like to be envy of somebody else that I had another. For me, I'm happy for my childhood, because all those obstacles and challenges I had to overcome made me to the person I am. So I'm actually happy for that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking, that if you say that you want to be a product manager or you do this quick, and why? What happens then?
Yeah.
Because if you do everything quick, what should you do after that? If you become rich, what should you do then? So find, why do you want this? What is the purpose of being rich or famous? I mean, that's not for me, it's not a purpose. It's not, I'm completely not interested. I just want to have enough money to live a good life. But for me, it's my why is the curiosity and learning. So I don't know if that was answer to your question.
Of course, it's an answer. Like, if you want things to happen quick, first of all, ask yourself why.
Yeah,
why?
And also you don't learn, because it's, for me, the learning, the experience, the change in my behavior. That's I mean, people sometimes today, they don't want to get old. I think I'm a better human today than yesterday, and I hope I am. That's my driving force. So I'm becoming a better human, a better person, and that's so I'm not disappointed in getting older. I'm getting richer of experience.
Yeah. And what is the project or an act that you did, and you're kind of, if you look back, you will not do it. Let's not say regret, but you will then do it again.
Well, I wouldn't say that there is anything I regret, because when I do things, I try to do it from the best possible solution at that moment. So I've had tough times, and I've had mistakes done, but I've learned from them. So it's nothing I really regret. But I need to learn from my mistakes or the tough times to grow.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really I regret, but I try to learn from each experience that's what I would say. So, and that's what I'm mentioning all the time, is that don't be afraid of doing things, or do what you want and love, but first understand why you want to do it, and what's the purpose of doing it, and then just do it.
Yeah. And how do you keep your work-life balance? Because you're very passionate about what you work with, and you see it as a hobby or joy things to do. How does this affect your private life and other things you do in life?
Well, to be honest, I don't see it as a work-life balance. I'm passionate about life, and I'm passionate about most of the things I do. Of course, when I do my bills and all that, cleaning, that's not, but I do that. But I mean, basically, I'm passionate about what I do in work and privately and my hobbies. And since I love my work, it's a part of my life. So I don't look at it as a work-life balance.
It's a separated thing.
Yes, I do what I love to do in work and hobbies and so on. And sometimes I work a lot, and then I try to do the things I love in the private time. So it's not a really work-life balance. It's a complicated question. For me, work is a part of your life.
Yeah.
And I love my job, so I do what I love, and then I just find energy at the time.
How do we fall in love with our job?
Do what you're passionate about, like you do.
Thank you.
And try to find something that you enjoy. For instance, if you love your job, then it's not 8 to 5 job. But perhaps you want an 8 to 5 job.
That's fine.
It depends on what you want.
Yeah.
The why. So, for instance, I've moved when I decided that I don't learn more. The job gets routine. Then I move.
Okay.
It's nothing like that. And then actually there are millions of things I would like to do. So, and I'm trying to do that all the time. But it's kind of fun that there's always something I'd love to do.
Yeah.
And so work-life balance is, I think that's, as long as you enjoy your life, then you have work-life balance.
Yeah. Because I got also a kind of similar answer from other guests, that it's like a work-life harmony. I'm passionate about what I work with. But then the comments I got is like they are workaholic. But it is not.
What was the comment from who?
From listeners. Of course, not all, but like, let's say, when we see a person are so much in love with their job and they think about it even after 5 o'clock, after office close, we say this person is workaholic and can't stop thinking about their job, and they are not having a quality time and a private life.
That's the thing is, I cannot judge other people. I try not to. I just listen to I can learn something from you, or I can learn something from somebody else. And as I mentioned before, I think we should stop criticizing each other. We are different. We have different objectives and goals in life. Try to be inspired by people that inspire you. And if they don't inspire you, leave it.
Yeah.
I know that people think I'm a workaholic, but it's there. I don't. I love my job, and I love my indoor cycling and spinning, and I love art, and that's me.
Yeah.
People are different, and other people love their children hobbies, and that they spend all the time with their children. Other people do other things, and people love to travel. We have different interests in life, as long as you are confident that you're doing what you want.
Yeah.
But I think that if you want to have a job that is not just 8 to 5, then you have to find your why.
Exactly. You go back.
If you feel that, I only work 8 to 5, well, that's fine.
Take any job.
It's up to you. No, but it's up to you. If you're working at AFRY and you say, well, I only want to work with renewable energy 8 to 5.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's no value. It's up to you.
Yeah.
For me, for instance, I can sit at work and then I can hear a rhythm or a tune on the radio, and then I say, oh, I can use that for my spinning because I do my own music.
Yeah, yeah.
So I am open and listening and aware all the time. If I go on the street and I can see, oh, that idea I can use for renewable energy, or I'm very open at the time. So I can't say that I'm only working 8 to 5.
Yeah.
And in my spare time, I focus on my exercise and training because it moves around. So I can't divide it like that.
I agree with you. It's like my answer about this, or my opinion about this, is like, don't judge others.
Yeah.
So far they are doing what makes them happy, and they are not causing any harm to the environment or to you.
Yeah.
So, and they are like, how to say, doing and creating a positive impact. So why not let them enjoy their life on their own rules, and your conditions, your beliefs, your rules. It doesn't mean that Mustafa and Glenn should have the same.
No.
Or you and Sarah should have the same. But as far as everyone is happy and enjoying their life and not causing any harm and bringing in a positive impact to this planet, so why not? Why not? Let them enjoy life.
And I fully agree, and that's what I'm said about. I've been very curious about different cultures. So I've traveled and lived and worked together with them. I mean, Latin America, they are quite different from Swedes,
of
or
course,
Africa, or in Middle East, or in Asia. And actually, I've become, I think if you look at me, you wouldn't say that I'm very Swedish.
No.
And I cannot say, because I'm a multicultural person with experience from all different parts.
Yeah.
And that's me. I like the person I become. I'm enjoying my life.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from different people. And I'm actually, now I can say I'm not a Swede. I am a citizen of the world with experience from, I have a little part of Russia, a little part of Lithuania, Thailand, Mozambique, Panama, mixture of all these, USA, where I live. I mean, that's a part of me.
If you got the chance to try another profession, not anything not related to renewable energy and what you work with now, what profession you are curious and you love to try and to learn?
Well, you ask a curious person, so I can give you. But anyway, it's to live and work with something for your career. That's a really big decision.
Okay.
And I'm very happy with what I've chosen.
Yeah.
So I could say that I would do this again. But what I wanted when I did the choice to study, I wanted also this evaluated to be an architect. So if I could do it another time, I would love to be an architect.
Okay.
And not just build houses, but to maybe create a sustainable city or society with the same as we do today, but not from the infrastructure perspective, or more from the city society perspective.
Yes.
Because that's my dual personality. I'm art and natural science, or art and engineering.
And now it's not about changing profession, now about changing you. If you can be something else than being Glenn, the human, what would you like to be and why? Anything, but not a human being.
Super complex question. But, well, my hopeful dream about the future is that we are all in a universal spirit, making all our ideas. So if I could be a part of the universal spirit, that would be great. If we all end up, we go from human beings and then we become a part of the universal spirit.
Why?
Because then we can learn from each other, and you get like a conscious. That is a beautiful idea. That I like science fiction and all that. Also philosophy, and I think that would be one part. But if you could be more Earth-like, I would like to be a part of the sea.
Yes.
To the natural circle of life.
Yeah.
Just imagine to be a cloud. So that's
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, now it's very joyful and interesting and inspiring to talk to you.
The same. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are in the last section of this episode, which is gonna be more about messages. And the first question is about you. Give a message to yourself, to Glenn. What is your message to him?
Stay curious and continue forward.
Yeah.
And that's, I know I will be, but and also continue to love and respect. That's but stay curious above all.
Yeah. And 3 takeaway messages.
I could say, sorry, and continue learning, because that's what I mean. Learn.
Yeah.
From your, that's. But I know that will. That's me.
Yeah. It's just a reminder.
Yeah.
And 3 takeaway messages to our listeners.
Yeah, I've already said, be open-minded, learn from others, but also I have a saying that everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Can you elaborate more?
Yeah, fear. You have fear of other cultures, fear of change. That's why we have conflicts in the world.
Yeah.
So when you judge somebody, it's fear of the difference between you and I.
Yeah.
So, and if you develop yourself, you don't like. I normally say to young people, or when I train, I say, when you look at kids, they say, I want to do that. I can do that. No, I can do it myself. Please don't help me. I can do it. I want to try.
Yeah.
Then we stop being curious somewhere in the teens, and we become afraid and say, well, I'm not sure if I can do that. And do I think I could do that? And that's kind of terrible, that we stop being curious and stop being small, brave kids. So continue to be overcoming your fear, and don't let fear hinder your decisions. It shouldn't be a limitation. Because we need to be open-minded and overcome our fear of the differences. Because today we have a lot of fear in the world. We need to overcome that fear and be more love and respect. Because that's the third part, is that we are all humans. So we are from different cultures, but we are all humans.
Yeah.
We have a common challenge. And actually I usually say, I have my own personal slogan is that my race is humanity and love is my religion. And if that's very basic, it's very simple. I mean, if you use that, then we can overcome the gang violence or the conflicts and the differences in religion, because we can have different ideas, but we must live together.
Yeah.
And we must work together. So be open-minded, overcome your fear, and love and respect.
So beautiful. And the last question in this episode is going to be asked by you. I don't have more questions, so now it's your time to ask a question to our listeners.
Well, we have a huge challenge ahead of us in the climate change. So my question is, what can you contribute? Not the politicians, not anybody else. What can you do to contribute to the climate change, to a better sustainable world?
Great question. Glenn, I'm very happy.
Me too. Thank you very much.
2 hours of inspiration, both technical, life, and everything.
Likewise.
So I'm very happy that we work in the same company. I see you in the corridor. We talk during the coffee break and so on. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. And you too. It's really inspiring to listen to you. I'm happy that we work together.